us again. I'm going to whiz through a really brief introduction for those who missed it last Friday, and then really pleased to get stuck in. So Majoritas Academy is a new startup partnering with Sebastian's European campaign playbook over the next month to trial some of the things that we've been building. And we are spinning out from an existing global campaign consultancy, and we have a point of view about the world and our place in it. And I don't think it will be surprising to anybody in this community to know that we think the world is in a troubling place at the moment. We've all heard the 3 Ps of populism, polarization, and post-truth politics. We think that as citizens, we have a choice to engage or to disengage. And actually, disengage is a choice that a lot of people make. And I don't want to make a value judgment against that choice. There is a place for refusing to be part of a system that you don't agree with. There's a place for purity of opinion. There's a place for people to take that stance in a pluralistic society. We believe, however, in the choice to engage. So to get stuck into a politics that many of us think is broken in lots of ways. We believe in engaging because we believe in democracy. That means we believe in campaigning. And that leads us to believe in campaigners, the people who do the campaigning. And we believe that there is a place for people who are prepared to stand up for what they believe, to argue persuasively, to argue, toughly, right? To get to be, to have strong beliefs, also to compromise and do those things that campaigners need to do to compromise, to persuade. And we believe that messy business of campaigning is a moral and valuable position to take. So we really love campaigners. And our starting point is that campaigners are often left struggling on their own. And we have in our mind, we imagine this character, Jenny, and she is a new campaigner or, relatively new to the business. And she's joining a new campaign. And you can see by the image that she's feeling pretty nervous about flying out to join the campaign. Because if she's lucky enough to have any training at all, it's likely to have been pretty ad hoc or informal. She's likely to have learned what she knows about political campaigning from a mentor, or from somebody more senior in the team who's kind of snatched a few moments with her to tell her, what they know. Or I guess it might have been academic. She might have been, one of those lucky enough to go to the Harvard Kennedy School and do a master's in political strategy. A few people at great expense get the chance to do something like that, but it's academic heavy. It's a lot of theory. And we don't think that this sets up campaigners to succeed. We think this kind of training is inadequate for today's campaign environment. And we think that actually what that means is the time it takes for a team to become effective is too slow in today's modern campaign environment. If you are setting up a campaign for an issue or a candidate, you need to be able to set up that team. You need to be able to start delivering immediately. And what we see around the world is that doesn't happen. It takes too long. And so we, as a startup, are building a company to address that problem. And what we imagine is a situation where Jenny, on the way to this campaign, now has access to learning that prepares her for her role in the campaign. She has access to interactive courses, high production values, beautiful videos, engaging content. She has access to learning for crucible moments. So every campaigner, knows the experience of arriving in a situation that is uncomfortable and that they haven't prepared for. The first time you have to tell the principal that the poll results that you've been tracking are going in the wrong direction. That is a difficult and awkward conversation that often people are not prepared for. And she has a community of peers, like we have here in the European Campaign Playbook, that she can draw on, that she can talk to, that she can get advice from. So this is what we want to build. And we have a simple way of putting it. We say now there's a manual for campaigners. Now there is a training manual for campaigners. And so our principles are, think about the production values of something like masterclass.com, but for campaigners. If you don't know Masterclass, think about a Netflix, but for campaigners. Think about real mentors, not academics and theorists necessarily, but the people who've been there and done that. They walk the walk, they don't just talk the talk. And then we've been inspired by the energy that we saw in the noughties, those future-focused tech groups and progressive boot camps that sprang up in America preceding and after the first Obama election. We want to capture some of that energy. And so this is where we come in. Majoritas Academy, we're building a global platform for political campaign leadership, where you're going to find content to help campaigners hit the ground running. And we're doing that for a higher purpose. We believe that the only people it serves to keep that knowledge about campaigning secret as it is now, or guarded, the only people it serves is the people who would quite like to have one more election and no more after that. That actually, by making the knowledge about how effective campaigns are run open and accessible, we believe that serves democracy. So we're in the business of upgrading democracy, of resisting polarization, and ultimately of changing the world for the better. And thank you. Let me show you our site, and then I'll hand over to Seb, because everybody here has access to this, which is majoritas.academy. Just hold on a mo. And if you don't have your access link, just well, you can ping me on the European Campaign Playbook community. You can message Sebastian and he'll forward the email, or we'll drop our emails into the chat after this. But this is our course. It's a minimum viable product, so it's our first iteration of what we're building, the global platform for campaign leadership. We've got about 20+ hours of content on the site at the moment from world-class campaigners, practitioners who've worked on thousands of campaigns between them around the world. You can see some of our courses here, and this is the course that you all have access to as part of the European Campaign Playbook. You can check out the trailer here.
I don't think there is an audio on the trailer, at least on our end, on my end.
I wanted to just get the trailer to see an image of Vlad here, who we're really pleased is joining us, not just online in the course, but here live today, who's gonna answer some questions that the people who have joined the course already and have started taking the modules have started raising some questions for Vlad, and he's gonna answer. But here, so this is this is what you have access to, this course on data and polling. Sebastian, have I missed anything? Is there anything that I should add before I hand over to you and we bring some questions to Vlad?
I just want to just for all of you who have already started, I dropped who have joined us today, I've dropped the information about how to access the course in the chat. So just go, Patricia, I know you recently joined, so probably you wanna set up your account, etc., and you will have direct access to this course. You don't have to do anything, simply register, and then you'll get there very easily. And just for you also to know, like, what is the timeline? We initially thought about doing this, going through all these modules, like, let's say on a weekly basis, we would look at two of them, and divide that into 5 weeks in total. Always, considering that this is self-paced, and that you should be able to if there is a week that you have more time, then feel free to advance even more. But as a community, we said, okay, let's try to cover and together go through these different modules that, as you can see, they're very specific in terms of the depth into which we go for each one of the topics. But all in all, I would say like no more than an hour per week to go through the modules that we suggest, for a couple of modules. And so ideally, we would be at this point, we would be like somewhere like in week 3. But of course, some people need a little bit more time to catch up because they joined over the last few days. And today's session is going to be a little bit about, we have collected questions from participants who have sent us. And of course, you will be able, the ones here will take preference and can ask questions directly to Vlad on the topics, from modules 1 to 6. Pretty much questions about everything that we have seen so far, or things that you have in mind that you wanted to raise anyway. So with that, let's do something. Let's do a round of introductions with the 3 people that we have today, Bianca, Alvaro, and Patricia. You know how we usually do this. You introduce yourself, where you work, and if you already want to put a question out there for Vlad to start, our guest speaker, to start thinking about a way to meaningfully answer, then feel free to do it. Okay. All right, Alvaro, do you want to start first?
Hi, Vlad. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, Bianca, Patricia, and Jacob. I don't think we met yet. Yeah, so based in Brussels, head of programs of European association called the GFAP. We are in the European automotive aftermarket, and my background is mainly political comms. So I've been in politics for nationally in Spain and in Europe. Now in the private sector, that's still really well. I'm spending, I have to say that the growth close to the mountain, meaning as you in politics, any campaigns will never really quick. That's that, that's an issue. So that's why I'm interested in this kind of content.
Yeah. And Alvaro advised also like prime ministers, and he was advising at a very high level in Spain. So it's great to have you with us, Alvaro. Patricia, do you want to say a few words about you, also what made you join, and if you have any questions about the course, the materials, feel free to do it.
Good morning. Sorry. For me, the first time here, I'm very musician. Sorry, my English. And for me, I don't have the question, so I look the situation after and write your mail the question. Sorry.
It's okay. Thank you. And Bianca, you are a usual suspect in everything we do. So, but always nice to get everyone else to get to know you.
Yes. So my name is Bianca Baumla. I've been working in EU communication, external communications about EU foreign affairs for 20 years. Almost, well, 8 years, let's say, as an EU diplomat, as press officer and communications manager at the EU delegations to Syria and to Ukraine. And the last 10 years as an independent consultant currently for the European Commission, DG International Partnerships. And yes, I've been a member of the community for I want to say about a year now, I think. And I'm also an active member of Volt, Volt Europa, and have been doing campaigns mainly with Sophie Intveld, who was a member of the European Parliament for 20 years and joined Volt Europa last from her Dutch party after 20 years left it for Volt Europa this last year.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so Vlad, you can also make like a short intro if you want, a little bit about your experience, and then we jump into the questions for the next half an hour.
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to keep it as short as possible because I think that some of you we already met like 2 weeks ago, and it was I mean, I'm really super happy to be in this format because for me it's definitely something new. I've been doing this polling business and consultancy for I don't know since 2000, right? So that's when I started basically having an academic interest in surveys and how they could better inform political decision. And then in 2005, I finished my master's degree in voting behavior, but then I felt the need to do a bit more practical stuff, more than the ivory tower of the academia. And since then, I've been on this roller coaster ride with the surveys and advising political clients and political campaigns in, I don't know, more than 30 countries until now. We do have a particular, I mean, in the thing that I do, we do have a particular emphasis on online polling. And maybe this is one thing that we could discuss, you know, difference between online polling and other types of collecting data. But I think that especially for political campaigns, this is really, really important because that's where basically the swing vote is, right? Because by doing online polling, one could say, yeah, but you don't capture, you know, maybe more particular segments of the electorate. And in general, this means two things worldwide. This means older people and in more rural, remote areas, right? So it's self-explanatory. But on the other hand, it means that you capture basically all the other types of votes. And using online technique, you're able to measure the changement as it happens, right? There's no longer a lag in days or weeks between the moment something happens and the moment you start seeing the results. It's for us is in the same day we can do that. And I think that it is something you don't need like ultra tech, high tech technology to do that. You just need maybe a right methodological setup that and then you could use whatever sources are on the open market. But I would like to close here and really go into the questions because this is also very interesting for me, to be honest. You know, I like to be challenged. I really enjoy the exchange of ideas, and definitely this should be a two-way street. So really looking forward to this.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen now, and those are like questions from the people who have started it. They've reached out. They've, you know, we have a space on Mighty Networks, and they've, you know, people have reached out in many different ways. And what I have done is rank questions from more like basic stuffs to the most advanced ones. So if you feel that some of these are basics, just know that some people are still like this is a course that is intended to take people from zero to actually being able to make decisions around polling, etc. But of course, I think I got there around 5 or 6, and then feel free at any moment, Alvaro, Bianca, Patricia, to jump in, to ask for something. Something comes to your mind, feel free to come in. You know how we roll. We are very informal, and we, you know, this half an hour that we have is for us to make the most out of it. So the first one, yeah, when we engage with people, with agencies, and they want to charge us for money for a survey, then the question is always about the size, no, the sample size. So, you know, this question, Vlad, how many people do we need for this?
So the short answer, 1,100 in order to have plus minus 3 percentage points at the level of confidence of 95%. That's the very short answer. But there's a more elaborate one to this. And actually, I think this is a very good first question. Because we should all the time I think we should start from the first principle basis. And honestly, I'm astonished how often people who are highly informed, very well knowledgeable, struggle with these basic concepts of sampling, or even more simple concepts are as average, mean, median, and you don't have to be a statistician for that. And look, I have this example in my mind, and you could look it on the internet, but I think it was in 2013 or 2012. One of the Minister of Education in Great Britain made a public comment saying that during his tenure, he wishes that all school children be above average. And it was like, what do you mean everybody should be above average? The idea of the average is exactly in the middle. And I think that's a good, so the idea of average should be a very simple one, but often we stumble ourselves into statistics, into these statistical concepts. Now, elaborating more on my initial answer is like this. So mathematics, no matter of the target area that one wants to explore, be it Bucharest, or be it Spain, or be it, I don't know, federal state in the United States, if sampling is done correctly, then one would obtain plus minus 3 percentage points margin of error on about 1,100. So this would be, I would say, the basis for everything. This is where you start the discussion. But then, and this is where the important part stops. It is not a linear progression, right? So if I'm going to add, let's say, 500 people to my 1,100, then this doesn't mean that my margin of error is going to drop with 1.5 percentage points. It's going to be like a tiny increase. However, if I'm going on a downslope and I'm going to say, okay, I don't have the money or the budget or the time for 1,100, let's go for 600. Well, 600, and that's already a much bigger margin of error, 6, 7, 8 percentage points, doesn't matter. So if there would be a sweet spot, that would be 1,100. Now, this should make it very clear that this allows for a general overview, because guess what? Let's imagine a geography in which you have just 1 out of 2 people going to vote, right? So if out of this 1,100, I'm already splitting the will vote or will not vote into 2, then automatically when I'm going to analyze voters, right, it's going to be 550, and then much bigger margin of error. And I think this is also very important, not just how we design surveys, but also how do we read them, right? Because we often see this in newspapers. I mean, I see it all around myself. A survey 1,100, margin of error 3%. Yeah, that's for the 1,100. But when I'm looking scores among parties, actually the margin of error is much bigger than 3 percentage points. And I hope it's clear where I'm heading.
Can I do a follow-up question?
Sure.
We had a couple of weeks ago, we had this Christoph from Ipsos, and they did this Eurobarometer survey. So does it mean, like, for example, of course you have Germany, like you're trying to survey Germany, but also Malta, but also Estonia, or or a mid-sized country. So does it mean, like, sometimes I find that people do a survey and then for the whole Europe, and then they put like in the end, like Malta, sometimes 1 person or 2 person answer the survey for Malta. So what do you think of that? Like at the pan-European scale, does it mean we just need to go for these big scale surveys, or what do you think about that?
For the pan-European, that's a very good question. Again, pan-European, it depends very much on the problem that you would like to tackle. If you want to have a very general overview of what Europeans in general from European Union think about, let's say, Donald Trump, right? But in general, us Europeans, let's put it this way, then again, 1,100 should be enough if I'm going to present the results about us Europeans. However, if I want to see exactly what people think about the war in Ukraine, right? then that's a bit more complicated because you'll have countries like Spain and Portugal that say it one way, and then the other countries that are closer to the conflict itself, the public opinion will fluctuate, and you're going to have some differences. So the European average, of course, is going to give you a good enough image of, again, how Europeans think about it. But then if I want to see about how certain populations, looking at the edges of the map, then I would totally encourage to do a much stronger samples nationally. So that would be a completely type of design, completely type of budget. I would say completely type of research in itself.
Yeah. All right. All right. Let's go to the second one. Yeah, I think they are all related. I think this is pretty much what we see across the board, which is polling is expensive, budgets are tight. How do I? So you said like I want to survey like 1,000 people, and then I know out of the 1,000 people, half of them don't vote, for example. So I'm like throwing money away, like half of my money goes away because I want the ones who maybe who vote but who could change the party. But yeah, I don't have like a big budget for voting. So how do I like narrow down the audience to the ones who I can actually impact? I guess that's the spirit of the question.
Again, that's a very good question, but the only way of doing it is by doing the screen outs. So technically what I would do, I would maybe do a survey in 2 waves. The first one is going to have like maybe just 3-4 questions, let's say age, sex, location. And then the fourth question would be, am I interested, I don't know, in people who vote or not, right? Because that's a very clear one. So this would, and I really want to see the subject of my inquiry is really related to people who are going to vote. Then I'm going to do a screen out just for questions. And then for the remainder, so I'm going to do maybe aim for 2,000 interviews in the first wave, which is for questions. So that's going to mean a much shorter time and much lower budget. Isolate the 1,000 people who are going to actually go and vote. And for them, I'm going to go with the next 15, 20, 30 questions that I would like to apply. I think that's the most judicious way of doing it. And let me say here one little comment. From my experience, there's this very high pressure sometimes doing a political campaign where you go and say, okay, let's do a survey. And then someone next to the candidate, the principal, or from the side, oh, I do have a database. Let's use that database. And I know that, and that instinct would most likely come from a good place. They want to help. They want to lower the cost and so on and so forth. But I try to stay as much as possible away from that. Not because there's some bad intention in it, but nevertheless, that might be a spoiled data set in things that with unknown unknowns, like Russell put it once, right? So even if it sometimes costs more, our drive is to produce our own data based on our own data set. So even if it costs more initially, the output is much better quality wise.
All right, so there's no, I think there is no escaping the fact that you need to get statistically sound data to then be able to justify all the decisions and all the, yeah. All right. Yeah, we keep going. Okay, so low cost ways to test messaging for people who are starting out. I think you mentioned online polling, so I guess that's part of the answer. But yeah, just tell us more about how we can do this on a budget.
That's a very good question again. And why I like it? Because it really brings us back to 2025. And I think now with all this new AI technology and stuff like that, it really opens up our research opportunities to new horizons. By that I mean we ourselves. We're developing our own tool by which we have this conversational AI agent that starts talking to individuals, like hundreds or thousands of individuals at a time, and with which we test various messages more in a qualitative way than in a quantitative way. But since your question is centered on this idea of low cost, then what I would suggest in this case is exactly this. So basically, go for a more qualitative approach, which doesn't require you be thousands of individuals, but maybe in the lower hundreds, and then one could elaborate a more detailed interview guide, and that you could actually do it even with an untrained AI, and then apply it in whatever community you could find. And low cost in this sense would actually mean dollars, not even tens of dollars. And I think it is a good way of at least starting.
Yeah. I've heard this is a concept that fascinates me. Particularly, I know the ones who follow our community know that AI is sort of it's something that I believe deeply that it will transform our industry. And then this idea that you have, like you will have, and correct me if this is not the right understanding, but you have like you do one big focus group or online or whatever, like you do like one big focus group which gives you like a representative sample of society, right? And then
Yeah.
you really but you do it like you would do for everything, right? And then you really track better and get more data on the people. It's not only sex, etc., but you actually get way more granular data in each of the individuals that are part of this big focus group. And then from that, then you make the investment to do this major effort, and then you give people through a language model and through a software, you give people the ability to say what would this group has said, what had they, if I had asked this specific question, what would have been the response by the group, etc. So you sort of run different simulation scenarios based on a properly done representative sample that was actually done on a wide variety of issues. So it's not only about climate, or it's about everything. It's about world view, right? And then I don't know, and I feel fascinated because I think about it as, okay, this could work, but and this could reduce the cost, but I don't know to what extent this is in the market or this is something.
Look, I think that's a very good observation again. And to be honest, I'm not sure that there is a very a clear answer to that. To be honest, and I think that in this case, we might be more in the terrain of exploring new ways in which we could test our messages, and again, especially with the help of these AI agents that could assist in collecting the data in an automatic way. Like a little orthogonal comment to this one, I think. Let's be honest that I think that in general, market research and political market research needs a good shake from time to time, because sometimes we are ossified in old ways of doing things, and then we just don't see the fact that there's a sea of opportunity in front of us where we could test new methods. So I would personally encourage any ideas by which you could expand both the target of your research and the way you would collect data, because data analysis, I mean, the results is pretty much the same thing. So I'm also fascinated about these new opportunities that open to us with this, and especially and what's going to happen is definitely lower the cost to that.
Yeah.
So you have a lower cost, and so a first barrier that drops is the cost barrier, and then also the knowledge barrier, because you no longer need a highly trained specialist to construct your guide interview or very good questionnaire. You can do a decent job, not even half decent job, but decent job with an AI assistant to that.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I could go on. Also, feel free, those who are joining, like, feel free to also say, hey, like, even if we need to take a step back, say, okay, because remember, this is our we are covering as part of the course, we are covering very specific polling and focus groups, etc., and how you use different type of polls, what is the structure of the polls. Once you have a poll that you want to test your message, how do you craft good questions, etc. So probably if you need like a step back, like maybe even a more basic answer, like why this is important in the first place, like feel free to to make use of Vlad time here. I'm going to continue because I want to make sure that everyone who watches this back gets their questions answered. But yeah, this is one that got us thinking, right, Vlad, before we started.
Yeah.
So I think the idea here is, how do I frame? So of course we want to we want to change dominant narratives, but also we want to do it in a way that people naturally follow us instead of treating a backlash. For example, I don't know, I'm thinking, you have a narrative about what's going on, for example, in, I want to name names, so I don't know, migration, right? And you want to change the narrative and say, hey, migration is good. We need it. It's actually good to pay our pensions and to, but then you don't want a backlash in a moment where, emotions are running very high, and being pro migration probably is not the most popular thing these days, no, in some parts of you. So how do you do that? It's maybe more strategic. How do you try to work within the dominant narrative, but also try to change it without, people like getting very angry at you?
And yes, we do agree. That's a very good question. And initially I had my doubts with it because I think, but I thought initially that it's more of a question that one could address to a campaign strategist, But now that listening to you, I realized that there are two parts to it actually. If you want to challenge so one thing is so the target is to challenge the dominant narrative. You have a certain type of story, right? We can think of whatever, right? But the first thing that you need to do is to measure what is the impact of the current narrative, right? This is the first step that we do all the time for us when we enter a new geography or a new electoral campaign. The first thing that you do is you try to assess whatever is happening in the market, right? So that would be the first thing. And then I don't think it's definitely not the job of a poll or a pollster to see exactly to see how we can challenge that narrative or how we can offer an alternative to that one. And I prefer to be very direct about this one because I know in my case that I often, I have my own opinion about it, or I look at the data and then I say, oh, so we should do this. And I think that our job as pollsters, we're like a little piece in a bigger machine, right? And we should stick to whatever we need to do in this particular case. And we're the thermometer, right? We are not the ones saying, oh, you have a high fever, so you should take a ibuprofen or something like that. That's more of a, that's for me in this particular case, the changement of the narrative, right? Having said that, what you can do with a poll, with a smart poll or with a smart market research, would be to see exactly how resistant to change some audiences would be to some certain type of alternative narratives, right? Because if I'm going to say that I want to replace the narratives that immigration is bad for our country with whatever other narratives, and I might have like 2-3 set alternative policies to that, for sure I can test them in a set of researches. And I always say that we should never test just one alternative, because then we give a very clear hint to what is our preferred baby from the family. We should always try to put 2-3 more alternatives, even if we have a preferred one. So I think this is for me my take on this question. I hope that I got it right.
Yeah. I think I was also thinking we had a lunch and learn in Brussels with another pollster, and they, I think the way they also said that is is, it's exactly what you said. It's like test different narratives and then test qualitative, because a narrative is not either dominant like 100% or 0%, right? So it's, there is a degree of how dominant it is. And I think you said that quite right. So see what is the weak point, maybe. Like, let's find the weak point of the dominant narrative, how you frame it differently. We saw the example of, how you come up, there has been an attack in Germany, a refugee has stabbed a young kid, and then you need to respond. And of course, you cannot respond by saying, you know what, we all, we need to integrate more. Like, I think you have to in those situations, crisis, etc., you need to be ready for that, and for your politician to react. And I think it's always like, what is the weak point in the narrative, or what is your strength, and say, okay, this is unacceptable. We're gonna make sure that something like this doesn't happen ever before, and we're gonna like make sure where how this could have happened. But at the same time, we're doing it together with, we cannot do it without their own community, because they are the ones helping us find the bad guys. And so, like, try to like always frame things like, okay, people, you need to match the mood of the people, but very quickly, if you're a progressive campaigner, you need to also bring, or to stay away from the divisive aspect of it, and say, okay, now, and then you can test which one of these reactions to a situation of crisis work better, and then advise accordingly. No, I think that's the example that we saw with this pollster. All right. Next one. This also comes from people who are doing this already in their organizations, and then they said, yeah, sometimes the result of for example, here I won't say names, and I will give specific examples. We got some people who said, we are an environmental NGO, or we are like progressive NGO, and when we did the focus groups and we tested this, we saw that degrowth, like this, this policy that says that, you cannot pursue infinite growth, and actually, if you do degrowth, you will not grow, but in the traditional economic sense, but there will be more positive outcomes. So let's put it this way. But then when you put this in front of people, like this idea of degrowth, of course, people say, what are you talking about? I want more jobs, want more money, etc. So they were like really struggling internally, selling this to leadership who wanted to see degrowth, etc. And so, how do you deal with this?
To the leadership of their NGO, or to the leadership of, or to like in a lobby activity to politicians?
Yeah, so that was from an NGO who needed to do, who wants to do a campaign pushing for these ideas. Like there were more ideas, universal basic income, etc., and how they could pitch this to decision makers, but also the general public. And then they saw that amongst many things, there were many things that didn't test well. One is European Green Deal, like no one really knows what, or like climate pact, this type of terms we use in the bubble, or Brussels, people don't know what it is. But it's basically the idea of degrowth, like was like very disliked. But the leadership said, no, we need to push with degrowth because, that's what policy manifesto says. And then, so how do you, like sometimes the things that the vocabulary that the leadership wants to do is not in line with what people use on their day-to-day, no? And
and that's I think that's a very European problem, to be honest. I would say, but a very true one, right? Because what it happens, the result is that it creates this disconnect between the general population and the somehow reclusive elite in Brussels, right? This is the image that it creates, which is completely disconnected from the farmers in Poland or in Romania. And first of all, I think that's more of a communication effort, right? Because if I'm just very comfortable to use this language, me as a leadership, I'm very comfortable of using degrowth without explaining it properly to the audience, then no wonder that when I'm going to test it in a survey, I'm gonna get like really bad results. I mean, not even bad, but people say, I don't know what that is about, right? And then, so basically, I think so this would be one communication problem: how to explain to people what you mean by your specific policy. Now, on the other hand, if me as a pollster, I'm trying to do a survey by which I'm trying to test a certain policy, then maybe just and not even a survey. Maybe it's a focus group. Maybe it's a qualitative interview, structured interview, something like that. I'm not gonna. Maybe just at the end I'm gonna use the degrowth part. Right? What do you mean by degrowth? You need to make to explain to detail what's behind this concept that you're putting forward. And if I want to try, do I'm interested in testing how well people know the word degrowth and what it means. Yeah, that would be one thing, one type of research, right? It's very simple. It's like how well do you know a certain individual, right? The notoriety type of a question. However, for me is what do people understand by my specific policy? How do they think about the way it is written? How do they think about the way it is implemented, by the way it is communicated by the elite? Then that's a different type of study that I'm going to conduct, and that's I mean, this should be at the basis of any effort before going public with it, and then we know we have some hints on how we should communicate about it, basically. Getting back to the first one.
Yeah, exactly. I think the same idea. I think also first that the leadership also need, if you are conducting research, you need to be ready for bad bad news. Like, you're not popular as you think you are. And I think that's also a psychological part that we campaign strategists need to do from time to time, to burst their bubble. All right.
Yeah.
Last question, and then so I think it's the last question. I think and so a couple of ones. How do you balance urgency and nuance when you are like doing, talking about things that are very, very complex? Again, migration. I know one of the participants is trying to do something very ambitious there. And also, how do you track things change over time? So how do you tell to your bosses what you are doing is actually making an impact, or to your funders? Many of our. Yeah, go ahead.
That's essential. No, I mean that's a very good question. In general, and for us, we call this a tracker. This one. And every time when we start a new project, we start with a tracker. What are the main elements that we want to track? Of course, you're going to track politicians, the main politicians, but then you're going to track some issues. And then the question only becomes of the frequency with which you track them. And let's say if you're having like a 6 months electoral campaign, or 6 months until the election happens, then I'm going to do it, I don't know, at the beginning, maybe I do it each week or every 2 weeks or something like that. But the closer I get to the moment of the campaign, of the election, then I'm going to do it with higher frequency. I mean, we do it, and this is no joke about it. So in the last 2 weeks, we do it on a daily basis, and in the last week, probably we do it multiple times per day or every day, every hour or so. So basically in real time. So in the last days of a campaign, we will conduct basically thousands of online interviews. Of course, it comes with a certain budget attached to it, but I think it's really important, this part, because this tracking part, the constant measurement of the same items, is actually the measure that shows you the performance of your campaign. And without it, you're just going about in the dark. And I cannot stress how important this one is. So in a nutshell, this is it. This how you track the impact by tracking. This is how you do how you measure it.
Which is more expensive.
It is, but it is or it is not, because at the end of the day, I'm going to spend. You're gonna spend more money on the research, but on the other hand, you're gonna get constant feedback on the way you spend your money on ads. or whatever other things that you're going to promote, you know. And I have plenty of subject of examples, even from European Union, in which people, I don't know, prefer to spend hundreds of thousands of euros on beach towels, right? I mean, and when is elections for European Parliament taking place? Usually in May, right? So there are very few places that would benefit from beach towels in May, or maybe Malaga, right? But other than that, so that was really, if someone would have tried the impact of the electoral campaign with that, that would have really improved the euro spent on the other elements of the campaign.
Perfect. All right. So time's up. And I think it was very intense. I could go, like, I think we could do this for hours, but I think we sort of cover a little bit definitely the questions that we received, but also it gives like a really good overview of what's inside the course. So I encourage everyone to go and start making progress. We have more follow-up questions like this one in the upcoming weeks. Thank you so much, Vlad.
Thank you all. Really, thank you for your questions, and to your colleagues.
And yeah, hope to see you soon. We'll definitely be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Ciao.
Bye.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon.